Wow.
Well, welcome everybody. My name is Mike Graham, and I am the founder of the Super Music CO WWCO group on Facebook. I grew up with the radio station. If you're joining us, first of all, welcome. No matter where you might be joining us, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, maybe, depending on where you are. If you're not familiar with WWCO in Waterbury and the station that it was, people toss around the word legendary and the word heritage and, adjectives like larger than life. But for me, that radio station, 1240 WWCO in Waterbury, Connecticut, had such a profound impact on my life. And I like to think that the last two letters in their call letters, CO, stood for community oriented because that radio station had such a presence in the greater Waterbury, Connecticut area. That radio station was out in the community all the time doing fundraising events and stunts and promotions and interacting with listeners. And its on air personalities were larger than life. You'd think they were a major market station because they acted like a major market station. And I was 10 years old in 1976 when I first started listening to the station, and it was using the slogan Super Music CO. And the jocks on the air where you could tell they were having a ball at every break. And when they did live events, you just had to be there. And if you couldn't be there, they created theater of the mind to make you feel like you were there. So it was just an unreal experience growing up listening to that station. It piqued my interest not only in radio, and I ended up getting into radio part time and working on the air and working in marketing and promotions, but I ended up, I live in New York. I've lived in New York since 1988, listened to New York City radio stations, Hartford stations, and I love them all. So many great radio stations with great personalities, but none of them for me has ever compared with WWCO. And so that's why I created the Grew Up with Super Music CO WWCO Waterbury group on Facebook. If you're not yet a member, you really ought to join. There's all kinds of audio there and pictures, and former personalities and listeners are there sharing memories. Grew up with Super Music CO WWCO Waterbury. But it's also why I created this show. And this is our first episode, our premiere episode of a show we're calling the CO Spotlight. And the CO Spotlight is really about bringing attention to the people who made the station great and sharing them with the audience and you, the listeners, anybody who grew up at the station, putting you in the spotlight as well. In a little while, we're going to put up a phone number where you can call in and talk to our guest. But first, let's welcome our guest, Chuck Wagner, who was on Super Music CO, WWCO from 1976 to 1978. Is that right, Chuck?
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And
So nice
we're
to have you here.
thanks. Nice to be here. Nice to see you again too after all these years. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was really a privilege to work there. It was a privilege to work with the quality of people I worked with, and it almost brought a tear to my eye when I looked at some of these people that I worked with. The Mad Hatter, Danny Lyons and Steph Ryback and Dr. Chris and Steve Skip and Steve Thomas, and there's just so many great people, and they all had such talent, and they all moved on to bigger and better things,
Yeah.
in life, and that's sometimes what happens. But once in a while, that magic moment comes together
Oh,
where it all cohesively connects, and it's like it radiates a special magic, and that what was happening at see, and it's not only the audience loved WWCO. Super Music CO was just one of those things where people absolutely loved that station, and it. You could feel it when you're out in the public, when you'd have the food drives or the different public service things that we would do, and just from every day, you know. And the funny part about radio is that sometimes you're in the studio and you're thinking, what am I really doing? Am I making any kind of impact on this world? And you don't think you are. And then you come to find out years later that it's still impacting people, people like you that, had the love of it. And somebody opened the door for you to come in and see it, and it took off. It started the fire in your heart, and that happens quite a bit. And, the stories of there was a guy out in the Midwest who he just happened to be taking out the trash at the radio station, and the guy didn't show up, and he got a shift. Next thing you know, he climbed his way up to the top, and he was doing voiceovers for the United States and national voiceovers back then, and that was the top 100. And it's
Yeah.
funny because it's just because somebody wasn't there, and that does happen too. So it was amazing. It was an amazing time.
Well, let's go back, Chuck, and we're going to talk a lot about your time at CO and your experience and what it meant to you. But let's go further back in time. How did you first get interested in radio? How'd you get started?
I actually had a bootleg radio station in high school. Um,
Wow.
and the funny part, it was today is the day that the music died 50 years ago. I call it because that's when my favorite station of the time, WPOP, went off the air. And that was a special place too. It had some amazing people that worked there, amazing talent, and it had a community love that was second to none. It was also a very powerful force. And when they decided to go to all news and they shut it off on this date back in 1975, it was really a day the music died because that was a very hot summer for great music. And it's like, can you imagine that? Right in the middle of shutting off. It was an amazing time, and they were an amazing radio station. As a matter of fact, as a kid, 13 years old, I would walk there 5 miles. There was a little vestibule outside the studio that you could go in, and I would sit there and watch the guy for hours, and watch the cart machines and all the lights flickering, and
Wow.
just the interaction with the microphone. But it actually goes a little deeper than that because I can remember I was with my sister, and she was driving by WPOP on Cedar Street, and here I am, and my eyes were pretty good back then. So we're driving by, and I'm looking in the studio, and I can see the Chuck talking, and I'm listening to him on the radio at the same time. Has no resemblance of what I'm seeing. It's just this magic I'm hearing out of the voice, the magic of that mystery box,
Absolutely.
and that lit up a fire in me that hasn't gone out yet. Even though I had been out of radio for a number of years, the love for radio never went out. Thus, my little radio station here, I call my working museum. And this is what I still like to do every day. And we'll talk a little more about that later too.
Yeah, because we'll want to take a little virtual tour there of your studio. But that experience at WPOP, and I know you had sent me some audio clips that you wanted to share to mark their 50th anniversary, which I think is a great tribute on your behalf. Shall we? You want me to roll a clip or two?
Yeah, why don't you roll on cut number one, and then cut number two.
All right. Let me do that right now. Let me just get. I just want to make sure we're routing audio to you as well, so that you can hear those. So here
This is a
comes.
transition jingle they used. You gotta love
That's
that
great.
1960s radio,
Oh,
And
that's
this is my
great.
favorite jingle of the whole package. Number two, which I think really sums up what they were. When the station turns you on, it's WPOP. You gotta love that
Love it.
too. People turn on the station, but this one turns you on.
Love that. Love that.
You gotta
And
love
what an
that.
impact that
Wow.
station made. I mean,
Oh, it was amazing. Some of the guys in there that went on to bigger and better things. I remember listening to Judge Harrigan. I don't know what happened to him. I think he finally got out of the business and went into the insurance business. But I had worked with him at 13 Waves, and it's just like great to hear some of the stories that he had working back there. And the people there. And I also had a chance to work with, what's his name? He worked the overnights. Oh, I can't remember his name all of a sudden. It'll come to me when I don't need it. That's what happens. But it's like some of these people that you work with, and along the way, and their background, you really want to know about what they were going through. When they were actually in
yeah,
place.
yeah. I
And
mean, you felt like they were your friend. right?
They were your friends. And some of them turned out to be really your friends in life. It was Rick O'Connor, is what his
Okay.
name. So, yeah, so he was overnight disc jockey because he had a first class license, and back then you needed a first class license to work at an AM station overnight that had a directional pattern,
Wow.
So there was reason for that, But that was an amazing station, and I think it's great that we commemorate the fact that um, it was the day the music died, when
Yeah.
WPOP went dark. You got cut number 6 there lined up.
Yeah, let's roll cut 6. Let me grab that. Let me just see here.
Let me put a little preface of it. This is
Yeah, go
just a
ahead.
quick sample of a quick air check. It's from 1978,
Okay.
and just 3 little quick hits in the news. But it just gives a little sense of what it was like back there. And we'll talk about Charlie and then Chuck, and because
All right.
became a little confusing for people. Go
Let's
ahead.
roll it.
Airchecks.com.
Super Music CEO.
That's the wrong one, isn't it?
No, that's it. That was it.
Oh, that is it?
Just about 1 year ago, Stephen Bishop was going on and on. I'm Charlie Wagner, 3:36 Monday afternoon. Good to have you aboard. It's a good-looking day, 28 degrees. The weatherman says it's going to be fair. Chance of snow tomorrow. The whole weather coming up in about 5 minutes from now. This is Chic and Dance from Theo. Billy Joel, Just the Way You Are, Super Music CO. Monday afternoon with Charlie Wagner, 3:46, along with Art Garfunkel, Paul Simon, and James Taylor. What a wonderful, sometimes when we touch, I get bruised. Not that I bruise easy, it's just that we touch hard, 419 Super Music CO with music from the Doobie Brothers coming up in 30 seconds.
We want your body, so be sure to stop by. The Party CO.
After a week-long recess, secret meetings are being conducted today in the Senate as most other Americans enjoy the holiday as a day of rest. It's 4:24. This is Lois Fusco, WWCO Information Plus.
Come to Metro.
That's it.
Oh,
Just a
wow.
little quick blurb.
Wow.
But you know what? You kind of get the sense of the intensity and the speed that everything was happening there, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
The fact I got to work for a station that was that tight, all together, and I really I enjoyed that all the way around.
Yeah.
I really did.
Oh,
The
yeah.
people.
It comes through. That took me right back to, I don't know what year, whether it was 77, 78, but, um, just the personality, the music, it was all there together. The energy, it was special. And did it feel special for you when you were there?
Oh, absolutely, it did. It absolutely did. And you're actually playing records. Those were actual records. So everyone was queued up, and we had 2 record players, and you go back and forth between the 2 turntables, and you got basically 2.5, 3 minutes to get the next one ready. So that's what you're always doing, getting the next one ready to go on live. And it was pretty special to do that and to have the opportunity to work in that era. It wasn't long after that they were all cards, yeah, and they all moved to that, and then eventually CDs and so forth. Now these things are all things of the past. They're kind of relics, but we got one right here.
Yeah.
Rusk
Let's,
turntable.
yeah. We'll take a look a little bit later in the show, maybe near the end, because in case your camera gets out of position, I definitely want to take a tour because you've got kind of, let me just go to the full shot of you. You've got kind of a working museum there, don't you?
I really do. This is really a working museum. The console is an IC10, Autogram IC10, and I fell in love with this board when I worked at WTIC because this was the board that they had up there, and it's just such a monster workhorse that it's one of these boards that are designed to really last a lifetime and then 1,000-year life, because if you have parts to replace, then you can make these things last forever. And this one, when I got it, was so bad when it came in the mail, delivery, that it basically was junk. and I had to make a decision if I was going to throw it out or keep it. And I waited so long. I'd waited, 25, 30 years for this thing. And I said, well, I got it. I'm going to make it work. And I did. And what I did was basically learned all about it. And I learned everything about it I could. And it's an amazing console. And it sounds just as good as anything today, which is amazing because this is from, the 1970s, but it really does sound that good, and a lot of
Yeah,
theory about it.
I love the fact that it's got rotary pots. I mean, what's not to love about that?
But, it's really interesting because they're called 2 dB step pots. And it's like, I never heard of that before. What's
No.
2 dB?
Yeah.
It's
So it
like,
was two.
is that,
Is that how
exactly,
it
yes.
the incremental? I mean, it's rotary, so how does that
Exactly.
work?
But well, it actually is pretty interesting because what happens is just like with film, you have 24 or 30 frames of film a second. And the reason they do that is because anything less and your eyes will pick up the flicker. And same thing with audio is with audio that you can pick up any sound that's 3 dB or more if in level. So what they did was they made a 2 dB step pot, which is actually one step below the human hearing, and not be able to hear it. But if you actually look at it, it's not going up. It's going up incrementally, and it's like every step of the way. But you can't hear that because it's below your hearing range, which
Wow.
is a little trick,
Well, I'm
It
trying to
is.
remember. We don't think we had a Gates board, but we had a rotary board when I was in college at Marist, and it was just a lot of fun. And I
Yeah.
know, CO had, of course, rotary pots, and it's more manual control versus the slide pots. I don't know. I just always like the feel because, I worked at a station, WRKI in Brookfield, and we had
Oh
slide
yeah,
pots.
great
Those were
station.
fun,
Yeah, yeah, they
but
were sure.
there's nothing like the rotary pots. I don't know. There's something about them.
Absolutely, I had love for them. So I got into the brand, and then it's one of the brands I like. I like the Rusco turntables, which it actually was pretty interesting because the guy, I think his last name was Friend,
Hmm.
Russell Friend, and Rusco, right? So he came up with the concept of turntable, but I found out through the years that he had actually been involved in the major manufacturing of every broadcast turntable that was on the market down there. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't know the phone was on. But anyways, it was one of those things where um, he basically it was involved in the manufacturing for different customers, and that's why a lot of them all had the same parts because of the fact that he was in the design thing and he had a stake in the parts. So anyway, it's just a little interesting, that little history that goes with it with these people.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let's go back though to where you started because I understand you started a radio station in your own basement. Tell us about
Yes.
that.
WKOB. I was um let's see, I think it was 12 years old. Actually, it was the first letter was WSMA, you know. Here, Frank, can we get rid of the phone?
We can't hear your phone, just so you know.
Oh,
Zoom kills that
okay.
background
Yeah.
noise.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I can hear it there. It's distracting.
yeah.
Anyways, I, um, so what was I talking about? The
The pirate radio station.
pirate radio station was WSMA, and was because we got in trouble. We originally broadcasting on CB, and CB was really big at the time, and we had taken up channel 15 or 16 or whatever, but we had put so much energy into the music that it was crossing over into other channels. And the CBers actually hunted us down and found us. And they said, you guys, you can't do that. So they said, you can go to Radio Shack and get these little modules and do that there. So we did that for a couple of years. And all of a sudden, those modules disappeared. And then I was at Radio Shack looking for another one and ran into this guy. You know him as Les Moore, and he uh, he he actually built me a radio transmitter because he had a bootleg station, and then we started broadcasting on 1200 AM because the only station
Incredible.
on that frequency was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we even knew a little bit what we were doing back then. So at 15, 14 years old, that's pretty good. You know,
That's funny. And you weren't far from 1240 even then.
oh, no, not far at all from 1240, you know. But we had an amazing signal for a 10-watt radio station. You could get us all up and down the Berlin Turnpike. We actually listened to ourselves in downtown Hartford, you know. So, you know, it wasn't a
Wow.
strong signal, but you know, the fact that we were getting out that far was pretty incredible.
And didn't you get some pickup, like some word of mouth pickup
We
about the
actually
station?
we were in the front page of the newspaper, the New Britain Herald, and then the Hartford Current also picked up the story, and we thought
Oh
we were
my
going to get
goodness.
shut down for sure because
Yeah.
we thought the FCC was going to come knocking on our door, but they pretty much left us alone for whatever reason until it continued to grow, and then it hit a point where they had no choice. But it was an amazing start for me because it's like it was what I needed to get into the business because I had no training, no experience, you know. So it gave me a, an opening to places like my first job in Florida was in Homestead, Florida, in a little country station, and then you know I had some real experience at that point, you know, and then I went to Great Falls, Montana, worked at a top 40 station, and you know that was more, you know, great experience. And then I went to Minnesota, uh, pretty powerful station, WEVC 560, and they were at night they would beam out to the ships because they beamed out to Lake Superior, but in the
Hmm.
daytime they had 5,000 watt signal which covered all of Minnesota, which was
Now, how
pretty
did
good.
you get that? Did you just move out to Minnesota? Is that what
I
happened?
did, yeah, job to job as opportunities came up. Then I got ill and I came back to Connecticut where I'm originally from, and when I was surgery I had to have, um, I got an interview with Bill Coleman at WWCO, and he hired me to do part time, and what a privilege that was. You know, when I
Hmm.
walked in the place, it's like I felt at home. I felt right at home. I felt at home with the quality of people and the love that you could feel. You were part of a group of people that really loved what they were doing. And you know, when you find that that there's pay doesn't matter as much. You get that feeling of I belong, you know, and that's a powerful feeling. Um, I mean, it was nice to get paid, but I mean, the bottom line is, you know, that love you never forget. You know, you never forget that, and the
Yeah.
listenership they appreciated that for sure. I can't believe I
Wow.
talked a half hour about this stuff already, but
Well, for a radio nerd like me, I mean, heck, I was at the Connecticut Radio Reunion today for a couple hours talking to a lot of people. And I just love to draw out stories from people because I'm interested.
yeah,
You know, if you got bit by the radio bug, that was it. You were done. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, you know
yeah,
that. So, I mean, you traveled around the country. It's like the theme from WKRP or the Harry Chapin song
absolutely.
WOLD, right?
Especially KRP. That was my favorite show of the day. You know, I was working at NVR when that was on the air back in Naugatuck, and that was an amazing station too. But WKRP was like our motto. It's like you know you could see the characters in there, and you can kind of you know see them all line up with the personalities that you work with, and it was pretty funny. You know,
Yeah.
everybody had a left Testament.
But and even the theme song, Town to Town, Up and Down the Dial.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the radio life. You're a vagabond. If you're going to move up, you got to move around, right?
You got to move around, yeah, and always moving upward, you know, and towards the bigger paycheck, and you know, and so forth. But it was really sad when it all died, and that's something else I think at some point we need to talk about because, you know, this time I'm talking about 1978, 76, and then and those final years was when FM was starting to take over, and AM was definitely going by the wayside, you know. So you could see the writing on the wall, but the truth be told, it's like um, nobody really wanted it to happen, but everybody saw it was happening, and it's like that's when WPOP, who was a really a trendsetter in that, shutting off the doors, and it really never recovered. AM never really recovered from that, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're speaking with Chuck Wagner, who was at Super Music CO, WWCO Waterbury from 1976 through 1978. He's mentioned some of the other stations he's worked at, and we'll get to some of those. I do want to talk more about CO, but if you want to join us live and speak with Chuck, you can do that by dialing in at 515-606-1240. Chuck, we spared no expense to get that phone number for you. So we want to make sure our listeners are taking advantage of it, our viewers actually, in this live streaming age, 515-606-1240. If you want to share a
You know
memory
what?
with
You're gonna have
Chuck.
to. You're gonna have to play cut 11 then, please. You know.
Uh-oh. All right. Well, let me go get cut 11. Let's see. 8, 9. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm looking at the right cuts.
So
There's
if you listen to
5.
WWCO, see if you remember this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here it is. Let's see, 9, 10. Here's 11. Just scrolling through here. Here it is.
Okay. How about-
A little late on the trigger.
Is that 11? I think I had. We have a
That was 11. You want to hear maybe the next one? 12?
12. Let's try 12. Yeah.
We have a winner. Please hang up.
Well, we don't want to be playing that yet. We don't have a winner yet, but we do have a call right now. We're going to take Spencer, who is in New Haven and is calling in. Let's grab Spencer. Welcome. You're in the CO Spotlight with Chuck Wagner, Spencer.
Spencer,
You have
how are
had radio in your heart for your whole life. You're radioactive. Why
Oh,
don't
yeah.
you start another radio station?
you? Oh, we'll talk about that too. I actually
You-
did.
You did, right?
I did start another radio station, and
Yeah.
we're going to talk a little more about that, but we could talk about it now. I guess that's a good time to do it. This is
Well-
Spencer. You said?
This it says Spencer Worcester. It looks like. I'm not sure. It's our automated screening. We're using technology to do the screening, but in the cuts of radio now, we can't pay for a phone screener. We have to use AI. But we'll
That's
talk about that. Thank you for calling, and we will get to that in just a bit. But Chuck, talk to me about CO, because I talked at the top of the show about what an impact it had on me personally, but more broadly on the greater Waterbury area. That station got monster ratings, but much more important than that, it had a monster impact.
Yeah, it did. It did. It was loved by the audience, and the people who worked there loved the audience too. And I don't think we forgot about that when we came to work every day. Whether we're feeling good or not, we try to give a good show, the best we could. And it's not always easy to do, to be up and bright when you're not. And it was a great time to be in radio for sure. And I really feel privileged to work with some of the people I work with. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quick, if I could change the subject just a little bit, is the Charlie Wagner thing, when that came up.
Yeah.
So I had been Chuck Wagner there, and I had been for a long time. But people like Steve Skip started calling me Charlie Wagner, and it
Oh, wow.
became contagious. Next thing you know, the Hatter was calling me Charlie Wagner, and other. Let me try using it, and let's see what happens. And as soon as I did, Danny came in and clobbered me. He says, "You can't change your name." He says, "We already have Chuck Wagner." It's like.
That's funny.
It's like, okay, I think I made a little mistake here, but I don't know. It was just one of those things where it just my friends calling me that, so I didn't think it was a big deal, but
Yeah.
it turned out that it wasn't really one of my wisest decisions, but that's the way it goes.
Well, you could blame Steve Skip when in doubt,
I
right?
can blame Steve Skip and the Mad Hatter.
And the Mad Hatter.
Brought it on, and Danny, he was my he was my conscience.
Yeah, Danny Lyons, right? Danny Lyons, who all these years later still in radio at WB 108.
Amazing.
But was he the program director at that point at CO?
He was the program director.
Okay.
He was program director. I was his music director, at the time, and it was a great experience. He asked me to do the music role, and that was great to learn how to do that. To learn how to listen for the hits, and when the people from the record industry would come in with their songs for the week. And it was also great to be able to organize, and we had a huge library of music, but obviously we couldn't play it all. So one of the best things I think I did there was I came up with a category called seasonal favorites, and those were songs that you don't hear all the time, but when we would put them in a seasonal category, favorite category, and like if it was a summertime song, then it would be in the summertime category, and it would get a little bit of airplay. So you wouldn't hear it all the time, but maybe once a year for a couple months, you'd have that song come up, and it was like, okay, pretty cool, and that worked out pretty well, because
Yeah.
one of the things I'm finding is that people really miss those old songs you don't hear all the time, you
Right.
know, like
The oh wow songs.
you got number 18, you got number 18 there.
Yes. Let me grab 18 right now.
Well, let me set this up here.
Go ahead.
So this is a song that was a hit back in 1978, Randy Newman, and
Mm-hmm.
back at the time, the Mad Hatter, Eddie Maglio, he would work.
Oops.
He would work. I think it's
That's
maybe in 19, maybe
19.
19.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
So, anyways, he would come in on Fridays, and I was doing afternoons, so I'd be until 7 o'clock. He would take over at 7 and do 7 to midnight. Who'd ever think of a general manager coming in and doing a Friday night show?
Yeah.
But the Hatter, he did that, and he loved it,
Yeah.
And he would always come in. He was ready to go, And I used to pick on him because he was short. The Mad
Yeah.
Hatter was not a big guy. He was like 5'5", and so he'd come in. So all of a sudden he walks in the door, and I'd say, "Hey Hatter, you got any short jokes? How about short stories?" And he didn't listen to me at all. Came right over to the microphone and said, "Short people can do it in sports cars."
That's great. That's great.
And he hit the riff just like that.
You hit the post right there. That was great. And he did too when he did that. Oh, that's the best. And I remember listening. I remember listening to him on Friday nights, and at 9 o'clock straight up, and he would use that phrase, it's 9 o'clock straight up, and you'd hear the opening chords to Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin every Friday night reliably at 9 o'clock. And then at 9:30, he would play the live version of Harry Chapin's song Circle, All My Life's a Circle. And not only would he play it from the live album, but he would sing along because that was an audience participation song. And he would sing along with the mic open, and he would tell all of us at home, come on, join me. Here comes the cellist part, and then it's our turn to sing. And he would sing, and I thought the guy was nuts. Here I was like about 11 or 12 years old, but I kept listening. And that was the thing about the Hatter. He kept you listening.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. He was just the most interesting guy. And he did very well for himself. In the end, he had so many friends, and he really found himself in this world. And I don't think there's many people who made me as happy as working with him. He just was that type of person where, he shined. I mean, that moment with the short people joke is just a kind of example of what it was all about, because he would take that and just turn it into a positive. Short people can, do it in sports cars. In the way he would say it, because he had that little kind of voice, that would do that,
Yeah.
But he was a big voice in town. He was.
Well, and he had a big heart too, of course. I mean, with all the events that he did, the fundraising events. I mean, talk about some of those, Chuck.
Oh yeah, he did. And anytime he'd go out there, and he'd do the typical male thing. It's like we're gonna give a $50 gift certificate to the first woman who comes in with a bikini. And it's freaking snowing out. Next thing you know, somebody comes in with a bikini. It's just like he had that kind of appeal. Where he just think the oddball way, and it's like those type of things that just manage to materialize.
Yeah.
It's just that type of person.
Yeah, and so many. I mean, you were part of the live broadcasts that the station did for the Muscular Dystrophy Radiothons, right?
That's correct. And also the food drive that we
And
did
the
in
food
town.
drop. And that's where I first met you in 1977 on the Waterbury Green, for the food drive. And, again, it was the kind of thing, it's like, wow, they're saying on CO, we got to bring down a bag of food. Now, think about this 1977, long before, food banks were instituted or a big thing. And you guys were out there, out in front saying, our friends and neighbors need our help. Come on down, bring some non-perishable food items. So I went to my mom and my aunt, and I filled up a bag of non-perishable items. My aunt Doris drove me down, and the Hatter came bounding out of the Winnebago on the Waterbury Green with a microphone, and there were speakers set up all over the green, so the live broadcast was echoing off the buildings. And he put a mic in front of me, and he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Mike." He said, "What'd you bring, Mike?" And I said, "I brought 14 cans of food." And he said, "Let's hear it from Mike." And that was, again, that's the kind of profound impact, because that stayed with me. He cheered me on for making a difference, for helping people in need. And I got involved with the cause of hunger years later, and I'm still involved to this day. And I trace it all the way back to that moment. So that's the kind of thing radio can do.
Well, it's funny because I mean, I had people in my life who opened the door. I mean, I remember, back going back to WPOP. These guys, they had heart. The disc jockeys, and you'd see this kid walking down in a rainstorm, and he's soaking wet, and he's sitting there watching the DJ, and they would come out and say hello to me and encourage me. If you're interested in doing this, you can do this. You know, and that inspired me very much. So there are people who come along that can do that, and I never forgot that. And it's like when we first met, and I think I gave you a tour of WTIC back in the day,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
I, and I think that opened your eyes to
Oh,
you know it- the best of the best. You know,
absolutely. Yeah. It
it
was
was it was fun.
1981.
It was
1981. You were working at TICFM and AM, both.
it was an amazing station. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, see the 10 studios that were up there on the, in the gold building.
Yeah.
They were just absolutely gorgeous. There was nothing like that in Connecticut except for them. So and the people up there were just amazing too. That was a great time to do it. You know,
But it
and
wasn't all fun. Go ahead. Finish that thought.
no, I just was going to say that I did my stint on the FM, and eventually they wanted to make a change, so I got a job over in the AM. I think I was
Yeah.
out of work about 10 seconds. So it's not like they didn't want me. It's just the fact that they wanted to do what they wanted to do in the FM, and
Yeah.
you can't get away with that kind of progress. You
And
know,
that wasn't your first time getting let go in radio. I mean, you got let go from CO, right, Chuck?
I did.
What
I was
happened
back
there?
on my honeymoon. I was coming back. That was probably the most weirdest story I got of all the stories in broadcasting. Is here I am, music director, and when I'm driving away to our honeymoon location, I'm listening to the station, and I know every single song that we're playing. And when we came back a week later, I didn't recognize any song that we were playing at the station. I said,
Wow.
"What the hell happened?" And I had no idea. This is before cell phones and all that stuff. So, it's like I had no idea what was going on. So, I walked into the station and they said, "Well, these are new owners and we've made some changes. And unfortunately, that you're not going to be part of the new program anymore." So, um, it was a day of reckoning because I don't think WWCO ever recovered from that moment.
Hmm.
Because if you want to lose an audience in a hurry, change all the stuff that you're doing that's right, and they
Yeah.
did.
Was it
And
in
that's what
response to FM radio? Is that what it was? Or what drove that?
I think a lot of it is the consultants. They knew better than everybody else. What was going on, and they had a lot of control over that kind of influence, and a lot of the owners listened to that, and stuff as opposed to you know
Hmm.
taking a chance and doing your own thing. You
Wow.
know, I mean, if you listen like WLNG in Long
Yeah.
Island, you ever listen to them?
Sure.
I mean,
Independent
Rusty
radio.
Potts was there for you. Yeah, exactly. But I
Yeah.
mean, they've made a niche for themselves, you
Absolutely.
know, through the years by, not following the trends, but by following what the local people wanted. and a lot of radio is driven by trends, and trends are, you know, paid, paid consultants are definitely a big part of that, that's driving the trends.
We got a call we're going to grab in just a second, but when you got let go, I'm curious what happened. I mean, you were newly married. Now all of a
All
sudden you're
right.
without a job. What happened?
I got a job at 13 Waves. I was working there part time, and I got a Pete Salant was the program director, and
Sure.
he says we need some help for the summer anyway. So
Hmm.
so I came down and I did some summer work, and that kind of got me through the whole mess. And then that was great. It was great filling. And then after that, when that came to an end, things opened up at 14 NVR. And Joe McCoy was the program director at the time. What a great guy. I mean, a
Hmm.
former CO alumni, and at the time in 1978, Joe was working after Imus in the morning. It's NBC in New York, 66 NBC. And he was just a great guy. He was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. He put my faith back in radio. He put
Hmm.
my faith back in life because he had a bigger understanding of things. And he knew I wanted to do it. He knew I was good at doing it. And he gave me the chance to one more time do it. And it took me a while to get over the hurdles because that hurt. That hurt to, lose two jobs in very short order. But
Sure.
the bottom line is the doors close, and sometimes they close that way in that business.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of pretty stories, and when it comes to an end, in broadcasting, a lot of times, you know.
But you told me something else about Joe McCoy off the air about right after he offered you that gig when you really needed it. What happened?
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, I was having a little bitter moment there, because I walked into the station, and well, first of all, I found out my best friend in Texas had just had an exploding appendix, and his appendix exploded. They didn't know if he was going to live, and I decided that I needed to go to Texas to see him, you know. And here I am. I'm starting my first week at work with Joe, and I walked in and I said to Joe, I said, Joe, I said, you can fire me if you want, but I'm going. My friend is in big trouble, and I got to be there for him. And, you know, a lot of guys would have fired it for the moment. It's like, here's the new guy and stuff. But he kept my job until I came back. I was down for 2 weeks to see him, and I came back, and that reinvigorated me all over, because once again, it was something bigger than radio and Joe that he could bring out in you, and he definitely did that, and he had that quality, to bring out the best. I mean, that's why he got where he was, vice president of programming at CBS FM, in New York. I
Hmm.
mean, he got there because of the fact that, he was that kind of quality.
We have, I think, a CO alumnus on the line, Chuck Martin from the early days. Chuck, welcome to the CO Spotlight.
Thanks for getting me hip to this program coming up, Mike, with Chuck Wagner. And it's nice to hear these continuing stories of CO. As you know, CO was my very first radio station. I graduated from Columbia out of New York, and I had my broadcast journalism degree, and I was all set to set the broadcasting market on its ear, boy, and I couldn't find a job for love nor money, and then I got a call from Wally King, good old Wally King. I just wanted to jump in here and say that, it's nice to hear Chuck Wagner because he brings me up about a decade and a half from my time at CO, and I was there during, CO had just got on to rock and roll music. Their competitor was WBRY, which turned into WTBY and all this. We had big competition there, but CO was the leader. We had it by leaps and bounds. I was there in the early days when Tom Coffey was in the morning, Jay Crawford was midday. Jay Stevens had just left the station. He went to D.C., and boy, were we in awe of Jay Stevens. He went to this big major market. He was replaced by Joe Hager. Then there was, he came out to L.A. here, and he was on ABC KLOS out here, AOR station at the time. He was known as Damien, but he was Buddy Bragdon, the Buddy Bragdon show at night there, and then I came on, and I was even doing some FM with Conrad, doing country for an hour, and I had to run the Dolly Holiday tapes. That's how I broke into business. But I want to tell you something. I don't want to take up your time. It's Chuck Wagner's show. Good to hear all that stuff. I even had a makeshift radio, but I didn't have all that great technology that you had, putting modules up in the trees so the neighbors could hear. It's good to hear that stuff. But of all the stations that I worked around the country, and CO has got a soft spot in my heart, always did, because it was my first radio station, and I'll never forget it. Traveling, and I'm a Meriden boy. I traveled from Meriden up to Waterbury, coming up that mountain every single day to go on the air, and it sure was a pleasure and everything. But I worked with some of those older guys, and when you talk about Super CO radio, there was that time there with us guys in the beginning. We put the cement and the glue into that station to become what it was. So long live CO. I can't hear what's going on. I can see your faces, but it's sure nice to reminisce with all the guys at CO. And Mike, thanks for keeping me hip to what's coming up on your show. I really appreciate that. I'm going to let you get back to your show.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Thank you for calling. And I think what happened was this is our first show, so I do want to apologize to the audience for the technical glitches. We're learning as we go. We're using technology. We're using an app called Call In Studio that connects our phone calls. And I think with our first caller, instead of me dropping the call, I dropped my host connection to the app. And that's why Chuck couldn't hear us when he called in. But, we'll learn and we'll get better as we go. Right, Chuck? That's how it works.
That's the work. It just works that way.
Yeah.
So we're ready to talk.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to talk about the station you're doing? Positively.
Yeah, I think I would. I would like to talk about that. One of the great things about this day and age is, even though I wasn't in professional radio for the past 10 years, I was working at a station called Trick FM out of Indianapolis, and I learned a whole new technology, and basically voice tracking from remote distances. And that turned out to be pretty cool, because even though the station was located in Indianapolis, we had people from all over the country who did shows, and what they would do is they could call in and record their show, the night of or whatever, the day before, and in some cases do it live, if you wanted to. But most of us preferred to do it. And one of the great things about it was that, we could do generic voiceovers. So if we didn't show up to work, the show still went on, because we had the generic voiceovers to just play, and so it sounded like you were there, even though you weren't, so that was pretty cool. And when I started learning about this, I said, well, this is pretty cool, but, it looks like a lot of work to set this all up. And so I said, I don't think I'm going to do it. And then all of a sudden, Trick closed down. And so now I was out of work again for, and I said, maybe it's time. So I started looking into it, and Todd Edwards, who owned Trick, he had a non-compete clause, so he had to shut it down because he got hired in broadcasting at another station. And so he said, well, I got all this old radio equipment. Do you want it? And I said, sure, I'll take it. So that was half the battle right there, because he provided all the software and all the means to put it together. And now I updated it and so forth with the company, and I said, you know what, we're gonna make a world-class radio station, and I think that's what we did. And the call letters are WUSA-DB, And DB stands for digital broadcasting, just like AM and FM. Well, anyways, supermusicusa.com is who we are. And if you remember Super Music CO, well, yeah, it did come from that, the first part of it. But we have a USA at the end because it's branded to be a little more national, even though we are local. But you know, it's really a pretty good station. It's all 60s, 70s, 80s, and more, and the more consists of basically 50s, 90s, 2000 to 2010, and so forth.
That's
They
great.
extend a little bit, you know. So it really seems to kind of work. And we're going to play something that we never played before. So if you could cue up cut number 17.
All right, let me grab 17 and I've got it. Shall I go ahead and play it?
Let's go ahead and play it, and I'll talk over it a little bit. This is our brand new jingle set for our callers, WUSA-DB, Super Music USA, Wallingford. Bring it up.
Super Music USA.
Love it.
Never heard before. And
Wow.
the next one, number 18, is the other part of it. This also has the ramp up to it, so
Let's do that right now. That's fantastic.
Going here. That's good. You know,
That's absolutely.
that's TM2 Studios, which are probably the biggest jingle company in America.
Oh yeah.
And and I was fortunate enough to get a pretty good package for that, and
Wow.
work with Chris Stevenson, and he is one of the owners, and he works out of England, and he guided me through every step, and it's like I knew nothing about making jingles from scratch, and how this process worked, and he guided me through all the way, and I was really pleased to come up with that. So we'll be debuting that next month when we start to do some live shows. Right now we're totally automated, but you can actually tune into the site supermusicusa.com
Okay.
or WUSA-DB.com or WUSADB.net. We're going to add that to the list there, but they're all
Okay.
connected to the same thing.
So you can see the addresses down at the bottom of the logo there. And tune in and we're going to hear your voice again on the radio, which is awesome.
Hear my voice again, and some other voices too, some other great voices, because we wanted it to sound big league and pro, and we got some other people in there that definitely add a layer of clout to it that you only get when you do this kind of thing. And I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made, and
Yeah.
you know, how good the station sounds. You know, I spent 18 months working on the music library. I didn't realize how bad the music library I had was until I actually went through it, and I said, "Oh my God, I got to replace a lot of this stuff." You know,
Wow.
so I did. You know, and it's really turned out to be pretty awesome because the end result is a beautiful sound.
Yeah, I've given it a listen already and I love it. And I think, the more you're able to, bring your personality to it, it's going to continue to grow, which is
Yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely, absolutely. I think so too.
And Chuck, before we wrap up, I know you spent a good part of your career in TV. After, working in radio for a number of years, you made the shift. When was that?
Well, I retired from WTNH TV, and I worked there for 27 years. I retired in December. Um,
Okay.
I actually technically retired 3 years before that, but my boss, David Honeywell, said, "You know what? We really can't find any engineers out there. Would you mind staying on part-time?" So I did. I ended up working a little part-time stuff, and that actually worked very well because that was during the pandemic. And money was a little tight. The stock market had dropped, and I was really scared about money because of, it's like this is retirement. This is forever
Yeah.
money. So fortunately, Channel 8 made it worth my while to do so, and it was a great place to work. amazing people. I mean, the talent, Ann Nyberg and, Gil and I mean, just, the name, I don't want to leave anybody out because there's so many of them, but it would take an hour to go
Now
through
you
all the
did
people.
master control and engineering there, and
I started at Master Control.
you helped to get the station to transition to high definition.
Absolutely. I was there during that period. I was a pretty key member of the team to put together the Avid part of the project, which was all the ingest stuff, which basically was changing over the cameras from analog to HD, and then changing over from a 4:3 frame rate to frame size to 16:9, for the wide frame,
Hmm.
so there was a lot of steps along the way to do it. It wasn't just instant. Plus the fact that since all this stuff was so new, nobody really knew anything about it.
Right.
So it's like, and it's kind of funny how I fell into that job because I literally fell into that job because somebody fell off a ladder and broke his leg. My
Wow.
coworker Ray Waldron, he broke his leg on a ladder, getting down a
Wow.
ladder, and it's like the day before we were going to do the installation, and so he was going to be out for a few weeks, and it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But I turned out to be a pretty technical person. It's like I learned how to fix cameras. I learned how to, install computer equipment. I was really pretty good at that because my background was computer. I went to school for computers back in the early '80s. And it just turned out to be a wonderful place for them to utilize my talents and to get the best from me. And I was really proud to work there.
Mm.
It was a great
And I
place.
know before that you had worked at WTXX, which was WATR TV. So,
Correct.
you spent a lot of time in TV, more time in TV than radio. Is that right?
That's true. That's true. However, I did work in radio while I was in TV. I worked some
Okay.
part-time gigs there.
Where
So,
was
I
that?
worked at WATR radio,
Okay.
WWYZ, back in
Okay.
the day. But
Right.
then I got to a point where it's just like, I had kids at the time.
Right.
It was you couldn't really do it all.
Hmm.
So I had to focus.
Let's grab one more call. We have Mike from Palm Beach, Florida. You're in the CO spotlight with Chuck.
Hi, Mike. Mike, you and I worked together at WHYN back in the 80s,
Yes, we did.
and I am hearing quite a bit of an echo here.
Yeah, turn the radio down.
And back in 1977, I was in high school, and Chuck invited me to come up to the radio station to meet Danny Lyons, who was the program director at the time. Nothing came of it because I was still in high school. I didn't even have a driver's license. But I so appreciated what you did. And years later, I became program director of WWCO. My life went in a different direction. I just retired from teaching, but you were very kind, and I very much appreciate it. I'm sure you don't remember me, but I remember you very well.
I sort of remember the incident, but you know what? There's been a lot of incidents like that through the years, and I'm so glad it had a positive impact on your life because it did on mine. When it had, and it's like, good works pass it on. And I'm glad it did.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad for you, and proud of you. You know, it's like you did your time and you knew when it was time to move on. And sometimes you have to do that. You know.
I just want to tell you, I've been listening to Super Music USA the last few days, and I'm really impressed. It's not the same 300 songs you hear over and over and over again. You've really got some variety there, and it's just some songs I haven't heard in years. And every once in a while, I have to stop and say, "Now, what the hell is that song?" Oh, that's right. So that's what you want from a station like that.
That's the idea.
It
And
just sounds great.
Thank you so very much. I'm so happy to hear that. The whole thing about the Forgotten 45 favorite, it's a little tongue-in-cheek category because basically, and I've been testing it for a couple of years at, we do this 50th anniversary for Carroll's High School, and every year thereafter we play the music for them and so forth. And I've been kind of trying that, to the crowd, just see what the reaction was. And people really like that. and yet you listen to the radio and all these songs have disappeared, but there's such good songs, so, and my favorite, we have a little promo that's going. It's like, why is the forgotten 45 favorite like a box of chocolate? And then Forrest comes on and says, because you never know what you're going to get,
Love it.
so,
Yep.
and it's like
45,
that's what
45 before and 45 after the hour.
what I never heard of anybody doing that. 45 after, 45 before. And I said, what a great lead in 45. Because that's what was all on the radio back in the day. 45s when these things were playing. You know, it's
So
like
Chuck, if you print T-shirts, you're going to have to send Mike Dowling one of your first shirts. I mean, he's in your loyal listener club before
definitely
he even
will.
started
You know,
it.
I
And
definitely
Mike,
did.
the thing is, Chuck, of course, radio is such a small community. I had actually gone and done an informational interview with Mike Dowling when he was program director at CO in 1985. I had just finished my freshman year in college. I was living in Rocky Hill with my parents, but I wanted to work at CO, and I was willing to drive to Waterbury, from the Hartford area because I desperately wanted to work for that station. And Mike was kind enough to give me an interview. He didn't have any openings at the time for that summer, but it was a very favorable conversation. And then 2 years later, in the summer between my junior and senior year of college, I was working at WHYN FM in Springfield, then CHR, WHFM, and Mike was working on our sister station, WHYN AM. And we were chatting in the hallway. I'm like, wait a minute, I remember you. So, you never know how things happen in life, right?
No, you don't. No, you don't. Doors open, you don't even know it
And
sometimes,
that happened with you, didn't it, during your career, Chuck, where, one door closed, but then you ended up working with somebody again?
That's the funny thing about being fired is that always happens, because it's like anytime a door opened after that, they used to tell me that. I didn't believe them at the time. It's like, when one door closes, another open. But it was always a better door. And it's not until you look backwards where you see it was a better door and it
Yeah,
was a better future for yourself. But you
yeah,
can't sometimes see that when you're going forward, looking forward and have that insight, you'd have
yeah,
you need a godly view to see that type of stuff.
yeah. Well, thank you, Mike, for calling in tonight. Really
Nice talking to you,
appreciate it.
Mike. Thank you so very much for your comments.
Absolutely. And listen, if you need music, I have a huge library. I'd be happy to send you anything.
Oh, I'm gonna have
Am
to
I
get in
still on?
contact with you. Yeah, I'm definitely adding to the library, so
Mike has my contact information.
I will
So
definitely get a hold of you.
if you need anything, I've got it.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you
It's
so much.
great. Thank you, Mike.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Great talking
All
to you.
right.
Thank you.
That was great talking to Mike. And again, Chuck, I just think back what a great station it was. All of you, what a time to be there. Do you have any takeaways of what, lessons you learned from that experience that you took with you forward in your life?
Um, I think when you develop that type of camaraderie, you really don't want to settle for second best. When you go forward and stuff, when you're working with brothers and sisters that really love what they're doing, it just creates an atmosphere. Sometimes it's the age too. I mean, we were young back then. I was 21 years old when I started at CO. Actually, I think I take that back. I may have even been 19.
Unreal.
Which is it really is unreal when you think about it. It's like it's like 19 years old, and I was able to figure it out. But it was I think when you're young and you have that kind of opportunity, and it's like it not only feeds the ego, which helps because you know what, a lot of times people are stepping on you all along the way and stuff, and
Hmm.
here you are, and it's like you're doing something to make a difference. Can I
Yeah.
just share a quick story here before we end
Sure.
here? Um, it was about 6 months ago, and I'm at home, and I'm going out and getting the mail, and I'm looking out in the mail, and I see a very odd looking mail piece of mail that came in a red envelope, and it has all sorts of old stamps on it, which I thought was really weird. And then it said, my real name, and then, Chuck Wagner, and then it had my correct address. And I said, that's really weird. I've never seen anything like this before. So I wasn't sure what to make of it. So I went inside, I opened it up, and it says, "Dear Chuck, I don't know if you remember me, but maybe this will help." And inside the envelope was this carbon copy picture, and I opened it up. It was all folded over, and I opened it up, and it said, "Dear Barry, thanks so much for listening to 96 TICFM. Um, it's people like you that make a difference because our listeners love us and we love you. Thank you so much for listening." And Chuck Wagner, and he actually kept that, and he saved it. He was going to his name was Barry Friedman, and he was going to college up in Hartford at the time, and he used to listen all the time to me when I was on TICFM. And when I was there, and he always enjoyed my show, and I appreciated that. But who the hell would ever think that 40-some years later, you get something in the mail from someone
Wow.
that says, "You know what? You really made a difference in my life." And I really never thought that that would happen, but it really did my ego a lot of good. It did my heart a lot of good. That it's like, maybe those are the times that I was sitting in a studio, maybe made more difference than I thought. But because sometimes, you're in alone in a room, and it's like you don't necessarily think like that, you know.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, finish that thought. So,
It was just a moment that we're friends now. We keep in contact. I picked up the phone. I called him, and we talked for about an hour and a half, and stuff. And I
wow.
found out that he is a professor, and he's actually a doctor of psychology,
Hmm.
and he had graduated, and he became a professor at the University of Georgia, and was teaching down there. And
Hmm.
I said, can't believe that I had the kind of influence and over
Yeah.
someone, that they would keep something like that so long. But
Yeah.
that that is the power of that game in mind you have, the illusion that you have with radio, because it is all done in the mind, you know. It
Well,
really
but it's
is.
also a choice you make to make a difference in somebody's life. I shared in the Facebook group when I was 15. I reached out to you at TICFM and you invited me to come because you were producing Bob Steele's morning show, and you invited me to come up one Saturday morning at the end of that shift so you could give me a tour of in the gold building of the TIC AM and FM studios, which for me was like a dream come true. And I remember it was the day Gary Craig had just started at the station. He was literally getting used to the board in the production studio that Saturday morning. I think he was going to be starting
Right.
on the air the following Monday. And you just kind of took me under your wing and introduced me to Gary and introduced me to other people at the station, gave me a tour, and you made a difference. And I'll never forget that. And that's the kind of thing that, you made a personal
Interesting.
choice.
There was a guy by the name of Simpson who used to do mornings at
Yeah.
TICFM back in the early '80s,
Yeah.
and
Simpson
he
in the
had left.
morning.
That's right. And he had left, and they had yet to hire Gary Craig. So guess who was doing mornings in the meanwhile? I think I did it for about 3 months.
Oh,
That was
wow.
me. So I
Wow.
was the last guy to do mornings on
Oh,
TIC before
wow.
Gary Craig. And Gary
Wow.
Craig's uh, shift went on for 30 something years, I think,
Yeah.
30, almost 40. I mean, crazy long time. Who would ever
Yeah.
think? I
Incredible.
feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity. Great story. Uh, my very first day of working at TIC in the morning, Charlie Bagley was the weather guy, and he was in
Hmm.
charge of all the people at the National Weather Service over there, Travelers Weather,
Fairweather
and
Charlie.
Fairweather Charlie, and he was pretty cool. And he called me up. He says, "Chuck," he says, "I really want to get to know you. We're going to have to get to know each other because we're working together now, So I'd like to take you out to breakfast." And he says, "Only problem is I got to find somebody to pay for it. So let me make a phone call. I'll call you right back." So he did. What he did was he called my boss,
Oh,
who was Arnold Chase, and
oh,
Arnold Chase was now going to take us both up to breakfast, and we both had the breakfast that morning. So here I am having, breakfast with the program director and the biggest weather guy since I don't know
Wow.
who, but it
Yeah.
was just an amazing moment
Wow.
in time. And it's like, how did I get this? And it's pretty remarkable, that
And yeah, that could happen. Being Bob Steele's producer, what was that like for you?
it was awesome. It was a dream come true. It was not only a dream come true for me, it was a dream come true for my parents because they didn't like the fact that I was in radio. They didn't understand anything about radio, and they didn't understand anything about how it went, and there was really no way to break through it, and they just saw nothing but negative. Yeah, to the point where my father had made a $5 bet with me, say that I would be out of radio in 5 years and, long be forgotten,
Wow.
out with some girls or, from college or whatever. This is when I was 17 years old. Well,
Hmm.
that bet, of course, that we
Mhm.
signed went into a drawer and went away for about 45 years. And all of a sudden he's cleaning out his drawer one day. He finds it. He looks at it. He says to my mother, he says, pay the kid.
All those years later, wow. What a story.
Even better. My mother hated Chuck Wagner because she said, there's nothing wrong with your real name. I said, I know there's nothing wrong with it, but we don't use our real name in business. Very few people use their real name in broadcasting. And it's been like that forever. So I didn't use it. Chuck Wagner had a nice sound to it. I liked it. And it's like, okay. So I chose it from when I think I was 13 years old. I've been using the name. And she hated it. And then all of a sudden, I became Bob Steele's engineer. And just overnight, instantly, we went from that doesn't mean anything to me to I can't wait to go to Sage Allen and tell the girls I work with that Chuck Wagner's my son.
Oh my God.
It was a special moment for me because
Wow.
it's like you finally made it, in their eyes, and I was in my early 20s when that
Wow.
happened, and it just like it broke a lot of ice that it's like
Hmm.
I'm doing okay, and they
Wow.
didn't think I was going to make it, but yeah, I did okay, and all right,
Such
and
a
it's going
meaningful
well.
anecdote. And I remember those Sage Allen jingles. Everybody's mom shopped at Sage Allen. So, for her to say that meant so much, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, she worked there, so it's like
Oh,
she couldn't wait to get in there, and tell her friends. It's like, oh, my son is Chuck Wagner. He's Bob Steele's engineer. So
wow.
that way they know. But he was an amazing guy to work with, and um, I really miss him. He was probably the most down to earth person
Hmm.
you would ever believe to be. As a matter of fact, I think I have the. You want to play cut 14?
Sure thing.
I think it's 14. Let's see if it's that.
Let's try it right now.
Yep, try it right now.
Good
Nope.
morning.
Not that one.
Okay. No, what's next one?
Oh, I'm
15.
sorry. That was 14. Try 15. Here's 15.
Here we go.
Fleetwood's Mr. Blue. And it's 2 minutes
Go to that.
before 10 o'clock in the morning. And I hope you'll have a fine weekend. I'll see you Monday, I hope, at 5:30 a.m. sharp on the 2nd of June. This is Bob Steele. Our engineer has been Chuck Wagner. And regrettably, we're saying adios to Chuck this morning. He's been doing our engineering on Saturday mornings on this show for some 4 years, and has always been on the job, early, on the dot, come rain, come shine, come blizzard, or what have you. Chuck is taking on some new responsibilities in the field of television, and we wish you the best, Chuck. I'll miss you on Saturday mornings. The news is next, and then Bruce Stevens, and Bruce will have some catalog numbers for you shortly, so stay where you are. You might get very lucky.
Let's play.
Wow. That must have meant so much.
It did. It did. It just it was heartfelt, and he meant it, and he meant it all the way, and it was hard to walk away from that, but it was time. I had a family to take responsibility for, and just had to move on and take on that new position. And unfortunately, it was gonna interfere with the one I was working at there, so it wasn't one I could continue to do. But I really feel like it was a blessed opportunity to have had that opportunity
Wow.
to work with him, and just to learn from that. There was a guy that, when he would sit there and he would read a piece of copy, he would read that copy 10, 15 times before he goes to air. I mean, he can almost do it by memorization. And when he would read it, he read it a bunch of different ways, with inflections this way and inflections that way. He would just try everything to just really make it right. And it's like, when you see that kind of a talent, that just doesn't forget that basic stuff. It's mind blowing.
And yet you shared with me how he got his start sort of coincidentally at TIC, right?
That's a funny story too. So anyways, here's the story he told me. And first of all, he was from Kansas City, Mo, but he didn't start in Connecticut. He went from Kansas City to Hollywood. As a matter of fact, he told me that he was in a Hollywood movie as an extra, Betty Davis movie, back in the 1930s or 20s, I forget, where he was a motorcycle cop, because he rode an Indian motorcycle, and that was his thing. And he was doing motorcycle races out there, and he was an announcer. So anyways, with that in mind, he would do the races, but he heard of an opportunity that at the old Riverside Park, which is now, I think it's Six Flags,
Right. Yeah.
up there. Yeah.
Mhm.
So he heard of an opportunity happening up there, where they were going to do Indian motorcycle races at Six Flags, or Riverside Park then at the time. So he went to apply for the job. So that means he had to come out here. So he drove his Indian motorcycle out here. And Indian motorcycle was made in Springfield, Massachusetts. So, it seemed like a natural fit, and it seemed like it had all the pieces, but it didn't. It fell apart, and for whatever reason, it didn't work. And now here he was, and now he's looking for a job. So he asked about jobs around. He said, well, you can go drive that WTIC, that new thing, radio. And so he did. And he went in and he met with a guy by the name of, I never forget his name, Paul Morency. I don't know why it stuck to him, but Paul Morency was the guy who hired him. He was the program director. Mm-hmm. And he said to Bob, he said, well, we'll give you a try, and we'll let you go on for 6 months, and we'll let you know what happens after that. So he was doing the 4 a.m. farm report back in the early 1930s. And
wow.
Anyways, he started doing that. So he came to work every day, and he did the farm report. And eventually Paul Morency came and went. And when Bob continued to come to work, and he says, well, after 50 years, he says, I come to realize I really didn't know if I had the job or not. So,
unreal.
He's there 50 years. It's like they never told me he had a job.
Insane. And that's how it happened.
And that's how it happened. That's the way it is. And he told me that. So that's the truth. You need the finger up there. And he told me that. So he was
incredible. Incredible. And by the way, I can't let you go without playing a very brief clip from your time at TIC-FM. I want to thank Steve West at airchecks.com, and also I think Paul DeMarco shared a clip, and this is you talking up the top of the hour ID at TIC-FM in 1981, when it was, I think, still Hot Hits, or right around that time, right? Or maybe not, maybe it was Gold Based, I'm not sure. Yeah,
it was 96
let's give it a quick listen.
Well, looking at 6 o'clock on this Monday, this is Chuck Wagner for the Vacationing Tom Kelly with Bob Seeger, REO Speedwagon, and more coming up.
WWCO FM, Hartford.
TIC FM.
Yeah. Oh.
4 now, past 6 o'clock. Well,
Sorry.
7 o'clock tonight, he returns.
I didn't have that audio routed to you. Sorry. Let's just do that one more time so you can hear it.
Well, looking at 6 o'clock on this Monday, this is Chuck Wagner for the Vacationing Tom Kelly with Bob Seeger, REO Speedwagon, and more coming up.
WWCO FM, Hartford.
Nicely done. Give it a little more.
TIC FM. It is 4 now, past 6 o'clock. Well, 7 o'clock tonight, he returns once again from vacation, suntan and all ready to go. I think he's all ready to go. It looked like he was all ready to go for another 2-week vacation, I think. That'd be Mike West. You catch him at 7 tonight.
All right, we better kill that before we get taken down for copyright violations. But that was so cool, and Mike West was back in those hot hits days, right?
Oh yeah, he was coming up at 7 o'clock, and he was there, the nighttime guy at TIAC
Yeah.
for years and years. Yeah. I don't know what happened to him, but I'm sure he's still around somewhere.
Well, he passed away actually a number of years ago. I think in don't quote me on this, maybe 2016. Sadly, yeah. He and Roger Stafford passed around that time, maybe as well, or maybe earlier. I think maybe 2010. But incredible. And I remember in TICFM around 1984, they were doing the big bumper sticker promotion, and they were doing these stick-ups, they called them, at area McDonald's, where air personalities would show up, and in the drive-through line, they would slap a sticker on the back of your bumper car, your car bumper, if you'd let them. And so they were at the Rocky Hill McDonald's, and I was living in Rocky Hill, so I went over there, and Mike West was in line, standing outside McDonald's on a summer afternoon, and I pulled up in my 1974 baby blue Duster because that's what my dad convinced me to buy. It only had 13,000 miles on it. This is in 1984, so it was perfectly practical, although not cool, right? A baby blue Duster. And I pull up in the line, and Mike West, I roll down my window, and he's like, "Hey, man, don't you want to win a cool car? Because we're giving away cars. You can get rid of this thing and win a cool car." I was like, "Okay." So he's like, "Let me put the sticker on your car." I'm like, "Cool." So he did, and that was my one interaction with Mike West. But, that was an example of the station getting out and doing stuff, and meeting the listeners, and that made a difference.
They had quite an impact in Hartford. I don't think it was quite the love that you had at CO, but
it wasn't. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah. And although there was a lot of love, Jack Mitchell, who you worked with at CO, Mark Gorlick, and then went on, you kind of followed him around a bit, didn't you?
I did. I followed him from, CO to Waves and then to TIC.
Yeah.
I made a stop off at NBR back in the day, but Mark was so good. Jack Mitchell was super good at what he did. His voice just matured, and he really became the voice of WTIC, and for the promos, and also any type of promotion, and just even the commercials and stuff. It's like if they wanted it done right, they gave it to Jack, and it just came out right every time. And he just became a real natural at that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always come naturally. I can tell you from being in the studio, it doesn't always come naturally. I do have one clip, though, that I think it did come off naturally. You want to play cut number 7?
Yes.
I'll lead up to it.
All right.
Let's see. This is a local commercial we did at WWCO. It was me and Lois Fusco back in 1977. But it gives you the idea of the quality of work that we could do locally if given the right copy and so forth, and the right talent with the right attitude. Because you had to have a little bit of Hollywood in it to make it come off. And I think this is probably the best example that I had of some good work we did. So go ahead and roll it.
We'll be ready to roll if I can close this trunk.
What's the matter, Muscles?
Should have had you sit on it.
Got the baggage.
No, your mother's still in the house.
Funny, George. Got the maps?
Check.
Reservations?
Check.
Tires?
Tires?
Ours are balding, dear, like someone else I know.
After vacation, I'll...
Oh, no. We're heading for the Firestone store, 809 Wolcott Street, Waterbury, and having Radial Deluxe Champions put on. They're on sale now. We can save $16 to $52 per set of 4.
Huh.
Yes, and as low as $36 on the BR 7813 white wall, plus $2 federal excise tax and old tire.
Think they'll take your mother in for trade?
Oh, that's great. That's hysterical. And Lois Fusco, who's a member of the CO group on Facebook, who I've communicated with, that's incredible. And I remember when CO did a promotion with the Firestone store, you won a Frisbee, and it said on it, it had like this van with some flames on it, and it said if you had, when you called in, if you won the Frisbee, they said, hey, you've won the Frisbee, now what? And you had to say, I love my Stones. And if you said that, you qualified for a set of 4 tires from the Firestone store. Great times.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was some great promotions back then, but that was a great example. She did an awesome job, and she played right along with it. And that was
the two of you.
Fun part about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when it mashes, it mashes. And it meshed really nice, and it just turned out to be a really memorable commercial, which I thought was really good. So
that's great.
That's
great. Do we have? I have clip 19. Did you want to play that near the end of the show or not? I don't know what that was. Cut 19. Oh, that was Short People. Okay, so we got that. Okay. Well, anything else you want to share? I mean, you've been very generous with your time.
I just want to thank everybody for listening, and thank you for the wonderful years that we had at the time and the wonderful years and memories that we've had since, because it certainly is a big part of my life to have had those opportunities to work with you folks in back in the day, for my coworkers and for the listeners. You made my life complete, by, being the type of people you were, and so generous in your givings for the different things that we did, and just for your loyalty as far as listenership. I hope we made it fun for you and memorable, but I think that we made some kind of difference, and I don't think I'm going to get many letters like I got from that gentleman from Georgia, but I certainly know that the feelings are out there, and thank you all very, very much for making it a big part of my life, because it really it made a 19-year-old become a man. It really did.
Wow. Well, so beautifully said. Thank you so much, Chuck, for joining us, for sharing so many great stories about your time at CO and beyond, before and beyond, and just sharing about what it meant for you. And I want to also thank the audience for your patience with our technical glitches, and thank you, Chuck, for your patience with that. It's our first episode. We'll continue to improve, but it's CO had plenty of technical challenges along the way, but the spirit of the content and the character and what you all were trying to do really came through, and it still does all these years later. So thank you so much.
Don't forget Super Music USA, because that's the wave of the future, and we got it for you here. So I think if you give it a shot, you'll find that you may like what you hear, and I'm gonna have to give your friend a call in Florida there.
Yeah.
See some of those records, because one of the things I found is the quality of some of the stuff I had wasn't so good. I've become more of an audiophile now and listen with a more critical ear.
Well, he's not only my friend, he's not only my friend, he's your CO brother. So the brotherhood continues, right? So
continue that.
Absolutely.
Mike,
all right.
You've been a host, really.
Well, thank you so much, Chuck, and best of luck, good health, and we'll stay in touch, and be well, my friend.
I said, well, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thanks, Mike.